Good evening, good afternoon, wherever you find yourself in this weird, wild, wacky world of ours, and welcome to the exciting installment of Darkness in Dublin. The scene takes place far away from the confines of Dublin city proper, far to the north in Belfast, a city famously and long since known for the troubles, sectarian violence, and other ills that oftentimes stalk its streets at night. However, it is not the denizens of those particular streets that interest us today. No, no, no. In the Queen's Library, located at the heart of the city centre, late into the evening, as the hour is long since past that of midnight, a new face to Dublin, or a new face to Ireland, sits and waits outside a large pair of black doors with silver handles. She's been sitting there for about an hour and a half. Ironic, considering her meeting was due to be an hour and a half ago. However, when it comes to elders and their time schedules, well, you tend to very much take. Wow, that was loud and impressive. It's okay, I'm only deaf in one ear. Don't worry, I still have the other one ish. Uh, wow, and I completely lost my train of thought. That was impressive.
Baby used
Sorry about
distraction.
that.
It was super effective.
Yeah, baby, you screech. It's super effective. Um, oh yeah, sorry. You've been sitting outside the doors for about an hour and a half, despite the fact your meeting was about an hour ago. It was meant to be about an hour ago. So, all in all, life has somewhat taken a downward spiral. I would think is a fair assessment. Intermittently, you will see other figures walk in and out of the doors, occasionally carrying heavy papers in their hands, in the way that you would see civil servants who occasionally have to go about their day-to-day workings. Eventually, the door creaks open ever so slightly. It's great. I've kind of gotten able to kind of ignore it and just kind of keep going with the flow because if I lose it, my thought is going to lose my mind again. So I'm just going to keep talking. This is how this is going to work. I've come to this realization. This is brilliant. Anthony, do these challenges just make me a better GM?
No, this will just make you a more ignorant GM.
Go fuck yourself, Anthony. Go fuck yourself. Okay. We are Zen. We are Zen.
Omnibus.
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 I mean, that is kind of what the Tremere would chant during the meditations. But eventually, a head pops out the door, and it says, "Excuse me, miss. We do apologize for keeping you waiting. Would you care to step inside, please?"
One moment.
Take time. Children sometimes exist.
Oh, come here. Oh, up you go. Oh. Okay, let go of the cables and my hair. Thank you. Seriously, Kieran. Why are you being such a pain today, huh? Okay, I think I might be able to continue now.
Okay. A figure, a rather nondescript, elderly-looking man pops his head out of the door, and he says, "Excuse me, madam. My apologies for keeping you waiting. However, the master will see you now."
Well, that certainly took long enough. I did have other plans tonight, but it appears those will be delayed.
You are led into a large, ovular room that is lined with bookshelves on either side. Tall, imposing bookshelves filled with leather-bound volumes covered in gold filigree and cracked leather spines. A fire burns merrily in the hearth, appearing to be made of logs and briquettes. Behind a large, imposing black desk, there is no chair on the opposite side of the desk to indicate one should sit and be comfortable. You will see the seated figure of Lord Stahlheim, Alexander Stahlheim, Lord of Hibernia, and overseer of the four chantries. Though currently, ironically, there are only three, but that's neither here nor there. He is scribbling in a very large book that is in front of him, that is propped up on a small golden little plinth. He tips. As you enter, he raises a finger, indicating that he will be one moment, as he appears to be finishing a sentence, before he will lean back in his chair. You will see, though his hands do not touch it, the book closes itself, and he will look up at you from over it. Oh, good evening.
I would roll my eyes just a bit. Not really noticeable. Good evening.
My apologies for keeping you. However, I was dealing with important matters.
Matters not.
No, I don't suppose it does. But that is neither here nor there. You come highly recommended, Miss Von Essen, as something of a social voice. I must say I'm impressed.
I've gotten that many a time in my life. Thank you.
You're quite welcome. As a matter of fact, I requested to someone like you, as I have a hmm, hmm, rather delicate matter that needs to be addressed.
Mm. I'm intrigued.
I
Do
should hope so.
continue.
One moment, if you please. You see him press a small button on his desk, and he leans into the intercom and he says, "You can bring in Mr. Ivanov now." The door is opened, and you see Anthony, describe Ivanov, and then I will describe how he is being brought in.
Mikhail is a man. He could be anything from a somewhat sallow 25 a to a healthy 30, and wearing a three-piece suit, so waistcoat, grey suit coat, grey trousers, white, what appear to be very thin white cotton gloves. They you probably find no dust in this room, and what appears to be some handmade shoes, though they look somewhat old. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Okay. He is being frog marched into the room by two individuals.
If I may add this emphasis, as he is frogma, may I make an amendment to that, Evan, just for the sake of hilarity? He isn't being frog marched; he's being carried, one under each arm. Like they've each got one arm, they're lifting him, and his arms are folded across his chest. I'm not even going to acknowledge this, as he's just carried into the room.
Thank you, Terence, Oliver. That will be all. You may leave us.
Mikhail just dusts himself off as they leave.
Mr.
I take
Ivanov.
it someone doesn't want to be here.
I was unceremoniously invited.
Invited gives the illusion that you had a choice, Mr. Ivanov.
Hence my use of the word unceremoniously, my lord. An invitation has an air of ceremony.
Yes. Very well. He presses a button, another button on his desk, and you see two of the bookcases move aside on mechanical rotors, revealing a large flat screen television that's been hidden from view. And he presses another button, the TV turns on. On TV, you see images that have become all too frequent, or that have become all too frequent on the news, which were images of the terrorist attack that took place a number of weeks ago in Vienna. Stahlheim will lean back in his chair and he will say, "I can now confirm that these attacks were, of course, not the actions of terrorists, but the actions of certain unsavory elements as it pertains former members of our clan, Mr. Ivanov."
Evan, is there a seat nearby?
No, there's only one chair in the office and he's sitting in it.
Are there columns?
No, there are bookshelves.
Right. He's going to go over to one of the bookshelves, position his back so that he's leaning against where the wood is, and then just slowly slide to the floor. So he's sat on the floor, knees pulled up, head in hands. And you will both hear a quiet sobbing. And occasionally, a string of invective in Russian, which I believe the Lord will probably recognize as the longest street, as like a stream of consciousness of expletives.
My. Needless to say, this has become an issue. Several items were stolen from the chantry proper, and when the council attempted to intercede, Lord Atreus managed to drive them off, but in exchange was himself driven into Tilpor.
Bang! As Mikhail's head snaps up and clouts himself on the back of the bookshelf. What?
You heard what I said, Mr. Ivanov.
With respect, my lord, I'm fairly certain I'm hearing a thing. That's not possible.
Oh, I assure you it is. The problem, Mr. Ivanov, is the fact that our defenses held. That was fine. He should not have been able to gain entry. Stolheim stands up from the table, knocking his chair back with the force of his standing, until it was the gargoyles of Vienna turned against their masters.
The gargoyles.
They said something, he looks down at his notes, about needing to follow their true father.
Evan? Mikhail's fist is going to rise up, punch into the floor, and there will be a dent. He's just instinctively potence. Boom.
Potence floor.
As again, switching into Russian. That fucking bastard!
So, needless to say, Mr. Ivanov, our defenses would have held, and we would have rebuffed him if the doors hadn't been opened.
Slowly gets to his feet. My lord, I assume I'm not here to be put to death. If I was, I would probably already be dead, which means you have a purpose.
If I want you dead, Mr. Ivanov, you would be dead. That is simple. I do not want you dead. I want the situation taken in hand. For Miss von Essen's purposes, I will elaborate. Mr. Ivanov here is the progeny of an individual who is named Ishar, or Ishar the Black, or Ishar the First Forgotten Son. He has a number of titles. Mr. Lord Ishar was the former lord that oversaw Louisiana and a large chunk of the southern United States under Lady Marilinda. With this in mind, he conducted certain. He looks at Ivanov and kind of contemplates his next words, and he almost asks like a question as opposed to a statement. Profane rites.
Rituals that, at the face of them, were not profane or dark, but had someone with more knowledge than myself and my brother seen them, their corruption would have been self-evident.
Yes. So, with this in mind, we attempted to apprehend this individual, and indeed we did. We dragged him to the cells located under the Christenhof Palace in Vienna, where we keep all of our most dangerous and ill understood projects and prisoners. However, somehow Lord Aishar managed to escape and has been causing havoc in the city of Dublin as of late.
It sounds like I arrived at a tumultuous time.
Yes, I would say this is a fair statement. And now it would seem he has used the innate link he had creating the ritual for their birth in order to sway the gargoyles to join his side, which means that none of us are safe. I have consigned every gargoyle in Hibernia to the flame as of this afternoon.
A bold
All
move, but a necessary one.
so you can see he writes something on a piece of paper and he holds it out for Katja, and like he's holding you out a piece of paper.
She'd take it from him.
Okay. This is my official decree, having been sanctified by the council in the absence of Lord Etrius, unfortunately. That stipulates that you are henceforth named the. This is going to be an interesting one. You've never shown great aptitude for the arts of blood magic, and I accept this. However, ultimately, currently, what Clan Tremere needs in order to lead the efforts in this city is a face. Someone who is likable and is understandable and can be used to bring the forces of the city to bear upon our problems. So, with this in mind, this paper names you the new regent of Clan Tremere in Dublin.
That is unexpected, to say the least.
Mikhail, get up off the floor.
Straightens up, dusts himself off again.
You are innately mystically gifted, from what I've been led to understand, or rather, you possess aptitude for blood sorcery.
I've made it something of a goal.
Yes, you will serve and you will aid in this particular endeavor. Between the two of you, a new chantry will need to be raised, as the old one has unfortunately fallen into my own old chantry from when I served as Prince of Dublin, has unfortunately fallen into disuse since the Sabbat despoiled it. A new one will need to be built. I leave the architecture of this to you. Do not fail me. You will be provided whatever monetary and mystical simulacra and finances you require to see the task is done. Do we understand each other?
Of course.
Good. Good. And Mr. Ivanov, do we understand one another?
We do, my lord.
Ultimately, he looks at Ivanov and he kind of leans forward. Why Dublin? Why is it that Aishar is in this? It can't just be because he cares about you.
No, it's not that he just cares, my lord. My father. You almost hear him say the word father, and he stops himself. Creator. wanted myself or Evgeny to replace him as regent one day. He wanted a successor, a second in command. If he has become openly what he was privately, I wouldn't be surprised if he's trying that again. If he's trying to be a recruiter. And Dublin is a place full of monsters. It wouldn't seem unusual for him to seek such a place to find a suitable monster.
Yes. What fate befell your brother? My records are not clear, other than you two served as co-regents overseeing New Orleans.
A little while after, well, there was a short time when I was active in the politics of the city. Then my brother departed north. He took over as regent of New York for a time. A few years, I believe. Then another was sent to replace him. To the best of my understanding, my brother is somewhere in upstate New York, buried some 15 feet beneath the ground with a stake through his heart.
My. It would seem as though he was not a popular gentleman.
Evgeny was never the most sociable man. An excellent combatant, but never sociable.
Did you inherit the social graces?
I was always more sociable than him, but I tried. As to whether or not I succeeded, though.
You have your orders. This is what the clan would have done. The pyramid has been shaken to its foundation. One of our honored elders has been rendered into torpor. We do not know the correct path forward. However, we will stand united. The pyramid will stand, as it always stands. These are simple and immutable facts. Do either of you have any questions for me before I dismiss you?
I have nothing. Mr. Ivanov.
I know that there were various ways of creating gargoyles and other homunculi. He could only have used the earliest forms of the rituals. His later work was shared among others.
Of course, you understand that those creatures that were present in Vienna were some of the first who were birthed and the most powerful to draw their bloodline's breath.
Indeed, but I would still wonder if, under the circumstances, it might be time for us to consider if we can employ a free gargoyle. There are those who are independent of the old bloodlines and who might be willing for a fee to serve. He might have
Possible.
less control over those.
It is either that or we must look into other homunculi in order to replace what it is that are no longer viable.
I would suggest that, my lord, but the issue remains the Montmartre Pact. Unless
I
this
was
is the
not
pyramid.
intending to use the same base materials.
With your consent, my lord, my regent, I would endeavour to find alternative simulacra.
Do what must be done. Very well. In that case, he leans. He will. His chair rights itself by itself, and it pushes in so he can sit down again. Slight judicial uses of movement of the mind are great. But he will then seat himself again, and he will. The book will open in front of him, and he will say, "I wish you both good luck. I have made arrangements so that a car is waiting downstairs to take you to Dublin, where I've arranged temporary accommodation for the new regent until such time as she's able to find something more permanent to her liking."
Why, thank you.
Needless to say, Mr. Ivanov, we do not consider the sins of the father to fall to the progeny. However, if you fail me, I will not hesitate to show you what happens when it is a point in a pyramid structure needs to be replaced.
As you say, my lord. I just hope that before that day arrives, I have a chance to watch him burn on a pyre.
Hmm. We shall see. The door is open behind you. Good evening.
And the same to you.
Good evening, my lord. And bow, turn, gesture for the regent to go first.
She'd give a slight curtsy and then off she goes, heels clicking on the floor.
Follow a respectful distance behind.
All right, I think that with that, we can end our scene. That has been a very good intro. Thank you, players, for playing. Thank you, watchers, for watching. This has been another scene in Darkness in Dublin. Have a lovely evening.